There are a lot of places here in Galatians 3 where we could hunker down and give some focused attention. Like verse 8, how is it that Paul can say that the gospel was preached beforehand to Abraham? What was that kernel of good news that Abraham received by faith and believed and was counted to him as righteousness? Or verse 24, how can Paul say that the law is like our guardian and speak so affirmingly of the role of the law in our lives when the whole letter really is coming against a positive view of the law? How can he here in verse 24 refer to it in a good way? Or verse 28, this often quoted verse that talks about these distinctions that we set up between ourselves: ethnic, gender, religious, socioeconomic. Like, what is he going on here? How can he say that those distinctions are all secondary to our unity together in Christ? That our identity is chiefly in him and not in those other things. We could really double click and focus in there, but I want us, friend, here to look at verses 10 through 13. Largely because of how personally impactful these verses have been for me. So let me read verses 10 through 13 real quick. Paul writes, "For all who rely on works of the law are under a curse. For it is written, 'Cursed be everyone who does not abide by all things written in the book of the law and do them.' Now it is evident that no one is justified before God by the law, for the righteous shall live by faith. But the law is not of faith, rather the one who does them shall live by them. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, 'Cursed is everyone who is hanged on a tree.'" So Paul is mainly driving at here that if we try to live by the law, we're going to die by the law. That we can't somehow attain our righteousness before God by our own law keeping, by our own morality, by our own good deeds. Right? Our justification cannot be established by what we do. That form of legalism is anathema. It is a curse. It is another gospel. But beyond that, not just that form of law keeping, but a law keeping that would say, all right, you might have been saved by Jesus, but now you need to go on attaining holiness by your own works. You need to add to the work of Christ by keeping all of the law, by being circumcised, by doing the set of regulations and rules. And Paul is saying that we are going to do that. If we're going to try to live by the law, we will fall short. We will fail. Because if we break the law at one point, we might as well have broken it at all. If we rely on works of the law, we're under a curse. We're under a curse because we've got to do all of the law if we're going to try to live that way. And friend, neither you nor I can do it. We just can't be good enough. There's no hope for us in trying to either establish or improve upon or increase our right standing before God by our own efforts. It's not gonna happen. And that's why we need Jesus. That's why you need Jesus. That's why I need Jesus to redeem us from the curse of the law. We need him to redeem us and be our righteousness. But not just for establishing our justification, but for establishing and being any hope that we have for advancing in sanctification. Of growing in godliness, in holiness, we need Jesus. We need him to do his redeeming work, which he has done by being cursed by God. He took the curse of God on himself for you and me, if only we set our hope and our faith in him alone, if he is our treasure. But listen, looking at our justification, remembering our justification in Christ, that can have a sanctifying effect. Right? That can help us in the daily grind of looking back and remembering, yes, Jesus died for me. It's all done. It is finished. The work of Christ is enough. But that doesn't make it easier. Not always. It can help, right? But it can be too simplistic to say, just remember that you're justified by Christ. And that's not what Paul's after, and that's not what I'm after. Because today, you still got struggles. You still have woes. You still have burdens. Today, the kids still need to be helped with their online school stuff. And that's hard. That's demanding. Today, you still have to try to go to work, whatever context that might look like for you, and face the uncertainties and the unknowns that lie ahead. And so as we read these verses, it's not that it makes things easier, or it's not that it's just a snap of the fingers and everything is better because we just remember that Jesus is our righteousness. But recalling this good news of the gospel frees us to press into these things without putting the burden on them to be our righteousness. So that today, your right standing before God does not depend on how well you serve as a mom or a dad. Today, your righteousness before God is not determined or added to in how well you go about your work. No, you're free to press into those things now because that weight of expectation has been taken off. It's been taken off of those responsibilities that you have so that God will find you pleasing. He will be pleased in you because you are in his Son. Because Christ has redeemed you from the curse of the law by faith. And so you can be a mom helping with homeschool. You can go to work. You can operate your business. You can engage in your relationships. You can press on in your struggle with mental health without those things defining you, without those things establishing or having the expectation that those things are going to establish your right standing before the Lord. So, friend, I hope that you can today walk in the freedom and the hope of the gospel. Not that it's going to immediately make everything better, but that it takes the burden and the pressure off of how you're living so that you can live in light of the gospel and in light of the freedom of the gospel.